At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES podcast, episode number 247. I am Greg, one of your favorite co-hosts, joined by my other favorite co-host, Joe.
Hi.
And we are continuing our light and breezy end of the year because we're busy as all get out episodes with another sports game. Although I'm sure some people would debate bowling being a sport, but if people consider wrestling a sport, then I think bowling's a sport. But
yeah.
Anyway, we're looking at the bowling game this time. We're looking at Brunswick World, the full name of which is Brunswick World Tournament of Champions, which came out with Super NES. So, as mentioned before in past podcasts, sports games tend to fall in two different categories. You have the more arcadey type, the arcade types, which are more fast-paced, light, kind of loosey-goosey the rules, just not very accurate representations of the sport, but they're still but they're more aimed at the casual players. The last bowling game we covered, which I can never remember the name of to save my life. It was about a year ago we covered it. Joe, do you remember the name of that game? It was right about a year ago we covered that.
Yeah, it was Super Bowling.
Super Bowling, yes, published by Nintendo actually. So that was definitely more like arcadey bowling game. So the other type of sports games are more simulation games, which are more slow paced, serious, studious. Those are more aimed toward the more serious, or I should say, more dedicated fan of that sport. And Brunswick definitely fits in that category. So, therefore, you have the typical yin and yang, pros and cons of this game versus this game versus the other game, because one's an arcade game, the other one's more of a simulation game, that kind of game. So, a couple interesting notes about this game right off the bat. One, this was a very late Super NES release. This came out with the system in August of '97. By that point, the system was pretty much dead. The only games coming out that year was just pretty much shovelware titles or very low cost, low effort titles that they come to releasing just to kind of recoup their money on it. I'm pretty sure Nintendo released their last games to the system in '96. I didn't go back to double check that. I meant to, but I forgot about it. But I'm pretty sure that '96 saw the last Nintendo published games to the system. So '97 was just simply the kind of remaining end of the lifespan of third party stuff you usually see for this that usually play for console. And this game is no exception. 98 saw the very last Super NES game released for it. That was Frogger, the terrible arcade port, which they tried to soup up to a 3D version of the game, which is absolutely terrible. But 97 did see the last games for the system, and 97 did have some good releases for the system, even though by that point it was definitely on its way out. So, however, you do often see late console games being very polished because the programmers have years of experience working with the system and know how to wring everything out of it. In some ways, this game is no exception to that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit here, but. Second, the developer of this game was a very well-known company, probably just not known to people listening to the podcast. They're one of those companies that I'm sure you played one of their games, but you probably don't know what their name is. The game was developed by a company called Text Design Studios, which was a British company which was activating games for multiple systems and computers over the years, from 1987 until 2003. And they handled many ports of games for a console, like our computer, like numerous arcade ports, Strider, Paperboy, Flintstones, some Sonic games, some Madden games, some FIFA games, a Star Wars game, Toy Story. They were the ones who were, they were the ones who were hired by a publisher to make a version of the game for that computer, for that particular console or computer. So that's their bread and butter. They made over 200 games, like over the course of their lifespan. So like I said, I'm sure you probably played one of their games before in the past.
Yeah.
It's just the name is, just the name is like very forgettable. So, then they had problems getting when seventh generation of consoles took off. They had problems trying to continue to have profitable games for those systems. Like they stopped doing game development in 2003 and pivoted over to developing USB development boards and displays for industrial companies until finally they shut down. Period in 2021. So I don't know who has the rights to their games now, but most of their games, like I said, were ports. There really were not too many. The number of actual original games that they made was very few. And actually, coincidentally enough, this is when they're like few original games because this basic game only came out on the Super NES.
All I'm hearing is that there needs to be a remaster of this game.
And it only came out in North America, despite the fact this game was designed by a British company. Probably because bowling's not as popular outside of the U.S. Canada, it does all right. There was a fad for Japan for a while, and bowling is still played in Japan occasionally. And there's still a market for, and there are still bowling hours in Japan these days. The fad's long gone, but I'm sure bowling's played. I'm sure bowling's played in other countries, but U.S. and Canada is definitely countries like we're best known at. So it makes sense, especially if this being like a late system release. It makes sense if this only being a North America game. So the game was published by Black Pearl, aka TXQ. So we've already covered them before in past podcasts, so I won't spend too much time on this. So anyway, like I said before, this is a simulation bowling game. Its main claim to fame, like that, they got the rights to be able to use the names, pictures, and stats of the 11 well-known bowlers for the time period. You actually play against in the course of the game. So it's also pretty robust with options. The main menu, you have the ability to be able to do player setup, which is basically just making your player, that kind of stuff. Practice is just like a quick bowling game to play in. League gives you the ability to be able to play against 4, 6, or 8 bowlers. This also includes 4 human players. So this is another game that supports the multi-tap if you have one. You can do a combination of human or computer players for that, and you can also select to do 1, 2, or 3 games in the match. And tournament mode, it allows you to pick from 1 of 6 real life tournaments to go play, and then to go play in tournament against the pros of the sport at the time. This is actually the hardest mode to play because the AI skills are on full display here at this point. Yeah. So. The tournaments are the Combat Zone Classic, the Quantum Open, the Las Vegas International, the Johnny, I think it's pronounced like Patagonia Open, the Bayer Brunswick Touring Players Championship, and the Brunswick World Tournament Champions. So, and so I think we've mentioned before in the past that back in the old days when ESPN was just getting started as a network, bowling was one of their bread and butter sports. They showed that a lot. And they still show some bowling. Most of their bowling these days is delegated to their secondary networks like ESPN2 and stuff like that. But the Brunswick World Tour Champions, it's like Super Bowl bowling. So they still show that at least as recently, like on the main network itself when it happens, because it is still like a pretty big draw. So. Because that's where they really elite players play, and the bowling's other sports were like golf and some other sports where it's like I like playing it, but I'm I'm not a huge fan. I normally don't care about watching it, but even I'll watch the tournament because I'm like the pro players. Their skills are very good. It's like, being able to see them like, okay, I'm going to like do this from this spot and pick out that one ball. I'm going to pick out that one pin by making the ball curve like this is like pretty impressive. So it's like, these people definitely have some skills. So, anyway, that's how the game, so yes, the game gives you like a lot of game options. Probably because of the fact it's a bargain release, there's no battery backup on this pack, which I think is a big weakness. I definitely would have preferred having the battery on here. You have passwords, which you can use like save your progress, but it's like a game in 1997 using passwords. Like the passwords are kind of like tedious, for sure. So the option screen also gives you some gives you some good options. Sound effects, music, like static meters, that kind of stuff. So for a bowling game, it does the job done as far as presentation and options. You definitely have a lot of good options to pick from here with modes of play, making your bowler, going against like pro bowlers, the time period, et cetera, et cetera. So, but let's get to the actual gameplay. And I'm sure Joe has something to say about this because he was talking to me like already brought it like off mic. So, go for it.
Oh man, this is such an uninspiring title. That's the issue here. They went for realism so hard that it's a very sterile experience in my opinion. Controls aren't bad. Like you can use the shoulder buttons to fine tune your aim. You move your guy left and right to get into the right position. And then you repeatedly press I think it was the B or A button to be able to move the gauges for your power and your spin.
Right.
And there you go. Never at any point are you technically playing AI characters. Like, yes, you're playing them, but you never see them. It's always just you with the lane and the ball. I can't even and I'm going to get it out of the way now. Like, I can't even say anything about the graphics.
Well, you do see other, you do see other alleys in use. So you do see balls going down the alleys and like pins being knocked out and lanes next to you, which is a nice touch. But you are right in saying that there is nobody else still shown in the game. It's just like you yourself. That's it. So at least the action going on, at least the action going on next to you adds a nice touch to it. But I think I think the game's designed the way it is because it is a bargain title and because the also because of like programming limitations for the system as far as handling the graphics and the object, but the graphics and object, that kind of stuff. So
now I couldn't confirm this, but I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe this was like the first time that you could actually kind of customize a character. It's very bare bones.
At least for a console bowling game, yes, that's correct. So
you could change like the shirt, the shoes, the pants, all that. But I mean, you
also have other realistic options available to you. For example, you're able to set if your bowler is like a left-hand bowler, right-hand bowler,
right,
which does affect like what side of the alley you want to be on for best effect, that kind of stuff. You're able to control how much, how slick the lane is, which would mean how much oil was applied beforehand. Because the more slick it is, the faster the ball goes. You're able to control the ball weight. Heavier balls have more punch when they get to the end, which is with an increased chance of a strike, but they're also harder to be able to aim and throw correctly. So, in real life, for example, I stick to a 10-pound ball, even though it is on the small side, because of the fact that I can't really handle any balls that are higher weights.
So in real life, I would love and have bowled with a 6-pounder because I can hum that thing down the lane with enough force that it connects like an 18-pound ball. That being said, I have to bowl with only my 2 fingers because my thumb is not going to fit in there, and it's bowling with your tips, which if anybody who's bowled knows that's very uncomfortable. But that being said, I generally throw a 16 to 18-pound ball. And I will tell you, after doing even just 2 games, that takes such a toll on your shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, all credit to the professionals who actually do it, because I used to bowl on a league as a teenager, and at that point, I only got up to a size 14. Yeah, it was a 14-pound ball. And, you know, I remember having no issues, but, like, I go maybe bowling once a year now, and throwing one of those heavier balls, I feel it within, like, the first 5 frames, which is why I jokingly say that I hum a 6-pound ball down the lane, but it's actually reality, because most of the time my shoulder's already bothering me halfway through the game. I got to switch to the 6-pounder just to be able to play.
Yeah. There's actually bowling alley across the street from me, like where I live now. But I'm not.
Nice.
I haven't actually gone because I don't have we don't have anybody to play against. But
Right.
but there is one. But knowing there's one that close to me is a pretty nice thing to have. So
Yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, and like they do give you the option of the professional bowlers here. Now, maybe at that time, if you're really into bowling, you would know who they are. Time has not been as gracious with them, because I didn't know a single one of them. Nor did I care to look up their stats or anything else to see why they were in the game. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, this is as if EA made a bowling game. That is the best way I can explain this. And like, if you know what I'm talking about like your Maddens, your FIFA, your NBA Live, your NHL games. Like, this is like, if it's in the game, it's in the game kind of thing. So, I mean, I would prefer Super Bowling, obviously, because the flash and the arcadey fun of it. But I guess if I was like a serious video bowling guy, this could be good. I think
the main player. Yeah, so I definitely hear what you're saying, because I also felt the same way, because I'm like, I don't because like bowling, I'm sure people who play the sport and follow it regularly know these folks,
right?
But, the common people are not going to. I assume, because I assume that they were able to use their names and likenesses, and the pictures of the players are pretty good quality, by the way, like the card. I'm assuming they're able. I'm assuming that the developer was able to use them because they licensed it from Brunswick. Brunswick probably just offered them a deal, and they just like licensed everything from them, part and parcel, which included the ability to be able to use their name, likenesses, and stats. So, the most famous player of the time, and the player who's most prominently featured, the player who's most prominently featured in the game in the packing material, is somebody named Walter Ray Williams Jr., who already pretty famous in 1993. He's pretty much a legend for bowling now, because he's still because he retired the PBA a few years ago, but he's still active in the seniors tournament, and he is pretty much the gold standard for bowling. I mean, I'm looking at his Wikipedia article right now, and it's like he has the record for all-time PBA Tour career titles with 47. He's earned the most money the PBA over the years, like $5 million. 7-time PBA Player of the Year. Won at least one PBA Tour title, like 17 years, 1993 through 2010. So that's pretty much the gold standard for like bowling players right there. So he's also wrote 110 career perfect 300 games in PBA competitions. So this is somebody who's still pretty known now, much like 30 years ago, which is like pretty impressive. So but anyway, so everybody here was at least well known in the tournament and the league at the time period the game was made. But yeah, of course you're right. Nobody outside of bowling is going to know who these folks are. It's nice they're included. Definitely adds for like a sense of like realism to the game. But it's like you don't really like the average player is not going to like the average player is probably not the average player is not going to like care like one bit about that.
Right.
So. Yeah, so the gameplay is slow. So I definitely agree with that. I agree with that. But bowling by itself, I think is like pretty slow. So it's like, I think at least in that sense, they got the realism right.
Yeah, and not having to wait for like simulated AI play does make this a snappy experience. Unlike if you play any bowling games really in the past 25 years, they all include, you're playing against AI characters, you see that AI character go through the entire process, and it can be a slog with newer bowling games. So I do appreciate the fact that, they didn't like simulate that portion of it. So that was definitely a plus.
Yeah. So
all doom and gloom from me.
Well, the graphics in this game, I think, are actually pretty good. I mean, this is one of the areas where I said that this being a late Super NES game does have some advantages because the graphics. I mean, it's a bowling game. They don't need to be like, like you don't expect a bowling game to have like super awesome graphics,
right?
That said, the graphics here, I think at least like are pretty good. Like your player, you only see your player from behind usually, but it's a very large, detailed, good-looking sprite. The bowling alley itself looks sharp. The actual, like I said, there are pictures of the actual players included in the game, which is nice. It's like, it gets the job done. It looks like a bowling alley, basically. So
yeah, and I should have clarified my sentiment. It wasn't that I was dogging the game for the way it looks. It's just like this is what the SNES could do, and it's a bowling game. Like, how much effort are you really going to put into making it look fantastic? You know what I mean? It's not, as we already mentioned, it's not super bowling. Like, you know what I mean? So you're not going to get those animations when you get a strike or a spare or a gutter or whatever. Like, your character is not going to be super animated and whatnot. So
actually, speaking about that, there's pros and cons about that. The actual animations, I think, of your player actually bowling, I think like they look great. They do look like sharp and smooth. They're detailed and detailed. I really like that. Where I find fault with the graphics is in the actual like changeover to the actual like pins being knocked down screen. Yeah. It's pretty boring. It's pretty bland. I think they could like spice it up a little bit at least, because it's like the ball does not look like it's the physics in this game do seem realistic as far as I can tell. Like I said, I'm not a pro bowling player, but what I can tell playing the game, it does seem accurate to your options and settings. However, when it shows that, when the screen changes to close up of your ball making contact with the pins, it does not look like very realistic at all. Maybe it's because the system couldn't do the physics required like for that or whatnot. But it's like in real life, the pins in real life pins usually go fly. You usually have like. In this one, it's like this one, they just like fall over and that's it.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of my biggest hangups on this, because like one of the big things I love in a bowling game is when I get a strike or a spare and those pins go flying everywhere.
Yeah.
I hate to harpen back to it, but in Super Bowling they did that. No issue.
Yeah, they did.
So it's not like they didn't have the technology to do it. It just wasn't done. And yeah, that's definitely a missed opportunity there.
Yeah. So I think of like most games, multiplayer definitely would help the experience. I could definitely see you having some fun with this game, like somebody else. Or 3 or 4, like 4 people, like for tournaments, because it definitely is like this is a good like drinking game, I think, because it's like gameplay is not going to be affected too much by having drinks in you. So
that's true. That's true. I was going to say this I would detract for this being a drinking game just because of the fact that you have to use the bumpers to fine tune your aim and whatnot. But to be fair, if you're playing with your friends, more than likely you're not competitively sitting there precisely aiming to throw the ball to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
So
right.
Yeah, I completely can see this as a drinking game for sure.
Yeah, and besides, drinking and bowling go hand in hand anyway. So
correct.
It's like, but
and nachos.
Yeah, my bowling places growing up did not have very good nachos. their staple for food. Their staple for food was like it was like either French fries, or like soft pretzels.
Yeah,
that's what I had a lot of. But yeah, nachos of course are also not like standard. So, what do you think about what do you think about the music and sound effects?
I mean, I think they're serviceable. It's nothing to write home about in all reality,
Yeah. Sound effects. The sound effects of this game, I think, are very good. It sounds like a bowling ball. The pin being knocked down sounds, the pin, sound great and that kind of stuff. Music's fine. I mean, it's pretty, it's not very bowling appropriate music, but per se, but it's very slow, even keel, very calm music in a way. So which kind of which matches what bowling is as a sport. So it does fit the overall tempo of the game. So and you can turn off and play your music if you want to anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
but for what it is, it's fine, I think. So in hindsight, this is for the time period. This is a very good simulation style bowling game because it did what it set out to achieve. It's a very good realistic looking simulation bowling game with actual players included in it, and lots of options to pick from, lots of modes to play. Handsome graphics. If you were looking for, again, as I said in the past, there's many sports video games that aim toward like a more adult, mature market.
Yeah.
Golf, fishing, and bowling definitely up there in the top 3. So
Yep.
it's kids probably are not playing these games. Well, at least not regularly. I'm sure some kids did play them,
Right.
but I'm just saying they're not the kind of games like kids would gravitate toward to. Whereas somebody in their 40s or 50s or even older would definitely want to play like a golf, bowling, or fishing game because maybe they're at the point in their life that they can't do it in real life anymore. It's to get the enjoyment of doing it in a video game. Is definitely up there. Which reminds me, we've not yet covered a golf or fishing game yet. We'll have to do that next year at some point. But,
Yeah. So as a mid 40-year-old, I can tell you that you play bowling, fishing, or golf games, not because you can't do it anymore, but because sometimes that's all you can squeeze into your busy life is
True.
a quick game, and you want that video game fix.
I mean, at least bowling is at least the easiest game to do in real life, assuming you live close to like a bowling alley. But
Yeah.
Fishing and golf is a lot more expenses.
Requires a lot more skill.
Right. A lot harder to get to usually, but so at least in bowling, yes, the series players will own their own balls and shoes, but you can always rent those if you have to. So
Also, nowadays you can request the bumpers up, so you'll never get a gutter ball, and you can actually get a little metal slider, so you don't even have to actually roll it down the lane. You just place it on the slider, it goes down a hill, and it bowls for you. So there is no barrier to entry there.
Yeah. So anyway, so for what this game was trying to do, it did the job well, I thought. It's like whether or not you enjoy the game or not would depend upon how you feel about bowling, period, what you're looking for. But if you're the kind of person who wanted a realistic bowling game of the time period, you definitely got what you want to hear in this, because this is the only realistic bowling game available on Super NES. So, Nowadays, there are definitely a better simulation. There definitely better simulation bowling games out there. The only reason I'd say to play this game nowadays is if Joe made a great point. If you want a faster bowling game, because there is no AI players actually physically playing at the same time with you.
Right.
I mean, for like a faster game. If you wanted like a faster simulation bowling game, this one still holds up pretty well, I think. Even though modern bowling games have more options, better graphics, game modes, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you got 10 minutes that you got to kill, and you want to play a game real quick. This is the game for you for sure.
Right. I mean, but also, I also recently, to give an example, to compare this to another like bowling game I played recently. I don't know if you got this far in the game, Joe. I recently played but the Yakuza games usually have a bowling game included in them as like a side game you can play. Yakuza 0, for example, has a very good bowling game included in as a side game, and actually. The bowling game in that, I think, is as good, if not better, than this bowling game is, to be honest. Okay. Because it's a very... You don't have the options in that game that you do in this one, of course, but, you are able to pick the size of your ball, you are able to pick, you are able to angle how your guy shoots something, shoots in the out, on that kind of stuff. There are no tournaments to play in, but for side game included in a Yakuza game, it's a very good bowling game. So,
no, I have not gotten there yet.
yeah. The Yakuza games, So, those games are well known for. Those games are well known for having lots of like side games included in them. Most games also have like a batting simulator, which is pretty good. They also have you can play shogi in them, which I know how to play, and mahjong, which I do not know how to play, even though I've tried to learn over the years. You can gambling is included in many of them, and they also have and because the games are published by Sega, they have classic Sega arcade games included in them, Hang On, Fantasy Zone, Afterburner, Virtual Fighter, and other games like that. So yeah. Anyway, that's just to say the bowling game included most Yakuza games is at least as good as this bowling game is, depending upon what you're looking for, if not better in some ways. But I'm just saying, there are still very good bowling games being made nowadays, which I think even casual players can pick up and enjoy. So this is. But the bowling game that strikes a good balance. I think between casual and sim because it feels more sim, but it's not quite as rooted in sim as this game is. But like I said before, if you as far as a realistic simulation bowling game, bowling is one of those games that, unlike baseball, unlike football, unlike hockey, it's not changed at all in 30 years. So it's like the fundamental game still plays as solid today as it did 30 years ago when it came out. Yep. So 25 years in this case because it's a late Super NES game, but you know what I mean. Yeah. But anyway, so if you're looking for that, this game still holds up pretty well today, like that sense. The main knocks of the game, which I said before, is passive features as opposed to battery backup, which is kind of mitigated if you're playing emulation these days. The pretty bad ball main contact with the pins, graphic and settings, and also. The other knock I have in the game is and this is more like a minor detail. The game feels like that is loading time. It takes a bit to get the game to get a game going, for example. Yeah. And I don't know that, and so I don't know if that's because of sloppy programming, or just because of the fact that that there's so much processing being processed in the card with the physics engine and whatnot that it counts like the delay. But so. There are many shovelware Kaitos released to the system toward the end of its life, as is typical for a console, and it's a console in the last year or two of its life. This is definitely one of them. I think it's better quality, however, than many other shovelware games that came out with the system toward the end of its life, for sure. So, like I said, if you enjoy realistic simulation bowling, this one still holds up pretty well today.
Well said.
Anything else you want to say about this before we move on and wrap things up?
No, but I will segue into the next section by saying I did see this game going for $5, and if you have a Super NES and you collect, $5 is not a bad price for this. I think that's actually pretty good as far as value goes. Just saying.
Yeah, because I was going to cover in just a moment, but because bowling is such a niche sport that the copies of this game can be had very cheap for sure. Yeah. So there is Because the game does use passwords. There are passwords available online. For example, if you just want to jump to playing the Brunswick tournament, you can just like put the password in for that and like go to it. So there are no cheat codes per se in the game, which bowling you wouldn't expect there to be a cheat code.
There should have been a passcode for Perfect 300 game. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I definitely bowled a higher score in this than I could in real life. I think the highest game I ever got in real life was the highest game I got in real life was about like a 180, like give or take. So,
okay.
Whereas like this game I got like 240 like one game. So I felt like pretty good about that.
Yeah, I used to, when I bowled on my league in my teens, I would hit 200 easy every time. But man, let me tell you, not bowling in 30 something years. I think the last time I went bowling was like, I want to say like 5 years ago. But yeah, it was because it was just before the pandemic, and like I did horrible. Like my first game was like 76 or something like that, and I was like, I did not know what was going on. I did pretty good by the time we got to our like fourth game, but like I was saying, my shoulder was, man, it was screaming.
Yep, I hear you. So, so as mentioned before, this game must have been This game must have been released in pretty good numbers because it's like because 104 copies of the game are currently listed on eBay as the time of doing research. 20 copies of the game that recently sold. I did not see the prices quite as cheap as you, but maybe it's because I was including shipping the prices. I saw car prices going anywhere from $5.50 to $12 for sold copies.
Okay.
So CIV was also pretty cheap, $15 to $29. And get this, sealed copies of the game were also ridiculously cheap for sealed copy. Those said they were about $24 to $32.
Wow.
If you want a sealed game in your collection, this is probably the game to pick up because of those like very cheap prices.
Yeah. Just for context, so the pricing that I had seen just happened to be when I Googled the game. And it was DK Oldies of all places that was selling it for $4.99, and they usually mark up a little bit. So I was surprised to see it that cheap.
Yeah. So, because of the fact this came out so late, the Super NES, the Super NES's lifespan, and because it is like a very niche bowling game, I could find no contemporary. I could find no reviews of this game like when it first came out. So, modern reviews of this game are pretty good. They pretty much said the same things we already said about this game. So, I don't feel the need to really go over them too much. But anyway, so. So that's pretty much the game for you. We are next time on the podcast we are continuing to cover light sports themey games by looking at a volleyball game next time. We're going to be covering what's the actual name of the game. We're going to be covering Dig and Spike Volleyball, which I believe you said was a port. Like the port Joe or something like that. I know the game is. I think the game has a different name somewhere else or something like that. But
yeah, there's a Spike volleyball game for the NES that I believe this might be a sequel of, but I'm not 100% sure because there's Super Spike V-Ball on the NES, and I think this might be related, but it might not be. I honestly not 100% sure.
Right. Yep. So to finish up the podcast real quick with a few minor corrections and also put things into context. I did look up real quick while we're doing the podcast, and so I want to correct some things I said before in the beginning of the podcast. Put things into context. This game came out, as I said before, in August of 1997. Nintendo did release. Nintendo released 2 months later, like October, the redesigned Super NES for sale in North America. The Super NES 101 model for $99, and 2 months, and so And a month later, in November, they released their last game for the system, Kirby's Dream Land 3. So I was wrong about Nintendo not publishing games for the system in 1997. A couple of games did, a couple of their games did come out that year. So we haven't covered that game yet, have we? Kirby's Dream Land 3, but we may have to look at that at some point.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah. So. But anyway, so yes, I already mentioned that Frogger was the last game to come out for the Frogger was the last game to come out for the system in the US. The game did get the system did get support for a couple more years in Japan. The last game come out in Japan, the Super NES, Super Famicom is called over there, was a game called Meadow Slater Glory Director's Cut in November of 2000. So the system did get a little bit more extra life in Japan than it did like the rest of the world. But anyway, which that game is it's an adventure game. Okay, based upon an anime, it looks like. So all right, but interesting. Anyway. So look forward to the episode next time, and as always, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your day. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, you can leave on our Facebook group, or you can also send me an email directly to the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, where can they reach you at?
You can find me in multiple ways. Twitter at JOESUX30. Also, a very public Facebook that you should not follow if you, don't like spicy. I'm spicy. I also do the Radical Retro Roundup, which is also very spicy. So yeah, I'm around. You can definitely find me. If you look hard enough, you'll find me.
Alrighty then. Thanks again as always. Thanks again as always for joining me, Joe, and thanks again everybody that are listening to us.
Absolutely.
We'll see you again next time. Stay safe, everybody. Be well, and catch you next time.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.